Askreddit, what's your best clapback moment when a man tried to mansplain something to you? I'll set the scene. First semester of my master's program, group project with two guys who were in their third and final semester of the program. We had to do a super informal presentation for class to talk about our research proposal. We were reviewing out notes beforehand, and I read to him what I had down for our hypothesis. One of the guys got super mad and said that's not what we are doing, then repeated back to me almost verbatim what I said. I replied with, I just said that, Jeff. I find it best to address it point blank. And it was so outlandishly the same crap I said that the other guy even told him I just said the same thing. Got interrupted by an idiot during a presentation I was giving to my whole office, including my boss. He even ended his interruption with, not trying to mansplain, but just wanted to make sure everyone understood what you were saying. I replied with, thank you for saying exactly what I just said, but slowly and loudly. I did not realize I had to go at a slower pace for the men in the room to keep up. My boss, an older male, let out a huge belly laugh and started clapping. The idiot who interrupted me stuttered over a comeback that never came. Not that anyone would be able to hear it over my boss laughing. And I finished my presentation. Several people told me later that they were glad to see him get put in his place, especially by the youngest, tiniest female on the staff. You must have felt like a queen. You go, girl. Starting this off to say that I'm white, but have been studying Chinese language and culture with a teacher from Taiwan for roughly 10 to 11 years now. I was invited to a dinner with some of my parents' friends. I say that Chinese New Year is soon and someone asks me about it. I start to explain some basic aspects of it. One guy, white, mid-40s, 95% chance he has never spoken Mandarin or been to China in his life, interrupts me and corrects me on word pronunciation in that voice you talk to toddlers too. Then he looks around the table with an apologetic look as if he was embarrassed by me, and I stare at him and say, oh, I wasn't aware you spoke Chinese. How long have you studied in Mandarin? The guy was pretty quiet after that. I'll start with mine. A man tried to tell me what the strings on the violin I was holding should be tuned to. I told him I knew what they were supposed to be tuned to because it was my violin and I've been playing for 16 years. I then proceeded to go play the concert that he had bought a ticket to see. It's not really specific to mansplaining, but if I'm interrupted I'm a big fan of. Oh, I'm sorry, the middle of my story interrupted the beginning of yours. A bald white guy tried to explain to me why I should perm my hair and tried explaining to me that long-term damage was a myth started by people jealous of straight hair. I stared at him with the most confused expression, then just started laughing. He got annoyed and left. Didn't even need a comeback. I dunno, man. Looks like you had too many perms. My husband tried to mansplain psychology to my best friend, who is currently in grad school, to get her PhD in psychology. She is so timid and meek, usually, and she just let him talk, and when he finished she said, that's interesting, where did you get your degree? Knowing full well he hasn't even gone to college. He said didn't go, and she said, yeah, it kind of shows. I love my man, but he can be a real nitwit sometimes, thinking he is the smartest person in the room when in fact, he isn't. If you keep talking, I'm going to throw myself into that water, and I'm taking you with me. We were having a first date at a bar on a dock. I've worked in disability/mental health for 7 years, and he was telling me there's basically no difference between being schizophrenic and believing in God. They're both just fake, right? It wasn't my clapback, but it was awesome nonetheless. Way back in my university distributed computing class, the professor, male, mentioned Indian notation. He asks the class, anyone know where that name comes from? I raise my hand. He points at me. I say Gulliver's Travels. Prof nods and turns back to the chalkboard. From the back of the room, the class smarty pants, male, pipes up, well, actually, and goes on to explain how there was this town in medieval France who got into a huge fight over whether to open eggs on the big end or at the little end, and so that's how they became Big Endians versus Little Endians. Prof gives him a look and says yes, that was in Gulliver's Travels. I was at a table having a chat with someone when a coworker of theirs that they clearly didn't like sat down and started talking over me. At one point the conversation was political, but productive, at least with my friend, and the new guy butted in, and I just said excuse me, I was speaking. Listen or leave. Not necessarily my clap back but my friend's. I was working out with my male friend in our university's gym, and he loves to work out with me because I have been a personal trainer for about 4 years. For him it's free training sessions, but I don't mind having a spotter. One day I was explaining exercise to him and going through what muscles it worked, how to do it safely, what to avoid, etc. I'll let him do a couple of reps when this guy comes up to my friend and asks him how to do. My friend gave him a brief description, but when I tried to talk to this guy he completely ignores me and keeps staring at my friend. At that point my friend told the guy, honestly I have no idea, she's the expert so ask her. Without even looking at me the guy just walks away. I have awesome male friends who stand up for me. I was fairly senior at my last job, had been there from practically the beginning of the product. But I'm female and work as a project manager, not a software engineer. I regularly had men, usually new hires, often developers, explain to me how the system worked. My favorite response was always, yes, that's how I wrote the spec. I may have been coached on being more personable once or twice. I work in a coffee shop and a man ordered a refill Americano with modifications. He starts explaining to me how to make coffee, like I don't do it every day, and I politely responded with I know how to make it, I made your first one. Suddenly his demeanor changes, and now he's all oh well it was very good blah blah blah. Like dude, I do this crap all day every day, I know what I'm doing. Thanks. Feminism is always a good one. I just love when men tell me how I'm doing feminism wrong. I've also had a man explain linguistics to me after I said I was getting a PhD in it. His credentials? He read part of the wiki entry on linguistics, so he clearly knew more about it than me, a person who's spent years studying nothing but that topic. What my t-shirt meant? I had a shirt that said the beatings will continue until morale improves. A guy at the grocery store laughed appreciatively and told me my shirt was funny. I smiled and said thanks. He kept looking at me and then said, do you get it? I said, do I get it? What do you mean? And he said, I mean, do you understand what it means? I said, yes, I understand what my own t-shirt means. When I was pregnant my former roommate kindly explained to me that pregnant women get cravings and that's why I was eating a certain food. Edit, a close second would be my stepdad explaining to me that breast milk is the healthiest food for my son and his gas and reflux would get better if only I would breastfeed. Maybe he should have bent down a bit lower and explained that to my empty boobs instead. They seem to have missed that memo. I've been tutoring math up through differential equations for about 9 years now, and it's so particularly insulting when men tell me how I'm doing my math wrong when they are screwing up basic arithmetic. But no, please, tell me how you're an expert in math because you read that history of calculus book once. Girls do math? How ridiculous. I hope you don't get that often. Really shows their insecurity though. I don't know if it counts, but when I told a guy friend about how a man had followed me and my friends for several blocks while we were walking home after a night out and how scary that was, said friend started telling me all the reasons why this man probably wasn't following us. Why would one guy follow 5 teenage girls? You could easily overpower him, so it makes no sense. He was probably just going to work. It was around 5 in the morning, etc. It was really infuriating because I ended up having to defend why that experience was scary to me. Lost some respect for him that day tbh. Not sure if this counts. I work in a warehouse and regularly lift and carry up to 70 pounds. Lots of guys try to help me. I'm like, dude, this is my job. I'm getting paid right now to do this. Also, I know proper lifting technique. You the customer are a lawsuit waiting to happen. They often try to tell me how to lift and carry, not realizing that female center of gravity is lower, so I just naturally look more awkward when carrying things. When discussing gender and sex, a man told me that I should try cracking open a biology book once in a while when I said there was more to sex than just chromosomes and genitals. I will be receiving my bachelor's degree in the mail in just a few weeks. 3 guesses what subject I spent several years and thousands of dollars studying. I'm an archaeologist, and some random guy trying to make conversation asked about any sites I had worked on locally. I started explaining the interesting history of one to him. Then he followed up by saying I was all wrong about it, and it was actually this way because he fancied himself an armchair historian and heard differently. He works with my husband and even went and told my husband the next day how wrong I was and proceeded to explain his view of the history to him, trying to debunk each one of my points. Never mind the fact I was actually involved in the site's investigations and excavations and subsequent analysis. I'm still wrong. My ex tried to explain to me how I could work my way up in a chemistry company in my country. You can't. He said I could just drop out of my chemistry degree altogether and how I won't need a master's or even a PhD to do the job I want to. He does a humanities degree at uni, which he is unlikely and doesn't want to get a job in at the end. Frankly, I would say that a lot of people view his degree as a waste of time. I can't and I don't want to drop out of uni anyway. Let me set the scene. I went with my husband to go see a group of his friends. We were all sitting around drinking, playing a basic card game. I made a play where BTWI won the whole game, which half of the group disagreed with and half agreed with. I tried to explain why I did what I did. This one guy's pipes up from the back and said I made the wrong play. Once again I logically try to lay out my reasons for why I made the play. I can tell he has no interest. He tells me again, I hear what you are saying, but statistically speaking, because he read something on a website. I have a master's degree in applied statistics. I have a master's degree in pure mathematics. I'm almost done writing my thesis to get my PhD in mathematics. Lastly, for my PhD program I teach probability courses to undergraduates, where I teach them how to compute tricky counting probability problems, including card probabilities. All I said to him was, I still stand by what I did, and I listed my degrees and walked away. But I wish I had a pencil and paper, so I cold just had him try and compute what he statistically meant. I've actually only come across it once so far. I was looking for gamer pals to play an open world survival game with. I meet someone, and through Discord this guy tries to explain to me what open world survival games are to me. The only thing that prompted it was he forgot which game I mentioned on my post, so when he asked what game, I repeated it, and then he went on a tirade explaining to me what the game was. I said I know the genre, since I play the game. Then he's like, oh well, you're a girl, so I didn't think you actually played it. Then goes on a rant about how girls don't play survival or 4X games, only Minecraft and League of Legends. Not the most ridiculous thing ever, but again was my only instance of a man explaining something to me unprompted because I'm female. In the end I just told him that I don't know why he thinks I made a post to play that game if I don't play it, and asked why he felt the need to explain one of my favorite games to me. I was actually expecting him to say I posted for attention, but he actually realized his mistake/unfriendliness and tried to backtrack. To note, he was actually being condescending, not passionate. I'm pretty meek, but sometimes my boyfriend dominates conversation a little too much, and he has a problem over explaining things, not necessarily mansplaining. But he asks me if I know something, and I say yes. And then he goes on to explain it anyway. I know sometimes he just likes to talk, but sometimes I also want to participate. So when he eats up all of our free time explaining things I already know, I start to get a little frustrated. Usually he ends his explanations with, if that makes sense. And if I'm feeling a bit feisty I will respond with, it made sense when I said I understood it before your 20-minute rant, so yeah, it still makes sense now. It has only happened a couple times and it really only bothers me when he interrupts me to go on some rant. In general our conversations are pretty even and fun.